This is great because it's got support section.
Yeah, I'll bring it next time. Let's do this one.
With repeats, yeah. Okay. Steve's in charge, but we're just going to take a bit longer.
Is the Q definitely the three numbers? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. She's got it now. She's doing it now. Yeah. So when I come back. Yeah, no, that's fine. They just.
Next one. And two.
Good morning and welcome. The ceremony will start in just a few moments. The procession is on its way. But before that, I have a few requests and notices. Can I ask you to please ensure all mobile phones are either on silent, switch to flight mode, or on vibrate? If I could ask you to just check. We've had a couple of ceremonies where we've had alarms and phone calls and text messages during the ceremony, so if you wouldn't mind, that would be lovely. We request that there is no personal photography or filmography during the ceremony. This is due to data protection. Professional photographs are available to purchase, and a stream of the event will be available on YouTube, and the link is on the graduation page. Professional photographs will be taken throughout the ceremony. If there is anybody who does not consent to their photo being taken today and used for publicity, please let myself or a marshal know. In the extremely unlikely event that we need to exit the building in a hurry, please remain calm and seated. Marshals will assist you in exiting the building. For staff on stage, we have a fire exit to the left of the altar through the vestry. For people to my right, please exit through the rear tower door. For people to my left, please exit through the main entrance through which you came. Please wait to be directed by marshals. When the ceremony has finished, the procession will leave the church and you will all be asked to stand. The procession will be followed by the graduates and finally our VIPs, and our remaining guests will then be asked to follow. We'd then ask you, once you've taken photos outside the church, to make your way to the marquee behind the Vincent Centre to join us for some refreshments. If any children become restless during the ceremony, we would ask that you leave perhaps the church, grab some air and then come back. And finally, to our graduands, may I be the first to congratulate you on your achievement. When your name is called, please step onto the stage. You will shake the Chancellor's hand before looking to the camera to my left for your official photo. When you leave the stage, please walk down the centre aisle to the back of the church where a marshal will escort you back to your seat. Thank you, and please enjoy the ceremony and the rest of the day. Can I please ask you to stand for the procession?
Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone, on this lovely sunny morning. May I welcome you very warmly on behalf of the University to this graduation ceremony. Addressing our graduands, today is a very special occasion for you, and indeed for your friends and family, and for the faculty and staff who have supported you and taught you throughout your time. Attaining your degree, qualification, certificate, diploma from the University of Buckinghamshire is a real achievement and something of which you will always be proud. You have enjoyed a very high standard of teaching from dedicated staff, and I know you will have played your part by studying hard to achieve the result we see today. I hope you've also taken every opportunity you could, whether remotely or in person, to be an active part of the diverse and multicultural student body of the university, which will have introduced you to people, experiences, traditions and cultures from across the world. You are the latest in a long and lengthening line of distinguished graduates coming from the University of Buckinghamshire. I hope as you look back on your time here and remember the support and encouragement you received, you will pass that support and encouragement on to those you will teach and influence. And we hope that you will act as ambassadors for the university and continue to enhance our fine reputation. I congratulate each and every one of you and wish you all good fortune in your chosen careers and future life. Thank you.
Dame Mary, graduands, faculty, ladies and gentlemen, guests of the university, you're very, very welcome here on this beautiful morning. Welcome to our beautiful market town of Buckingham and our verdant campus here, which you'll go down and we'll meet soon on the Balloff lawn in the marquee. We'll meet after the ceremony and you'll realize that we are in a beautiful fold of the river Great Ouse. It was the site of the original 7th century Saxon settlement of Buckingham. Buckingham, Ham means water meadow, Ing means people of, Buca was the Saxon chief. So Buckingham is the low-lying water meadow of Buca's people. And you'll see you'll see quite easily how it was a Saxon settlement with 3 sides protected by water. The 4th side was protected by this small hill. You came up this morning resplendent in your gowns. And here was the site of the Saxon fort, which eventually then became a Norman castle. And finally in 1777 was consecrated as this beautiful church. The University of Buckingham has been here as a university for 40 years next year, and for 50 years as the University College at Buckingham in 2026. And on this very spot, in 1976, Margaret Thatcher, who was then leader of the opposition before she became the first female prime minister, Margaret Thatcher opened our university, speaking from this very spot. And she said some very important words, which are important for the university. We believe in independence and academic freedom and free speech. And she said, independence, we must remember, is not a gift. It is not something that governments confer, but something that a free people enjoys and uses. And she continued, but unless we are worthy and able to take advantage of a freedom not yet extinguished in our land, we shall become pale shadows, like civilizations before us, who were eventually thrust aside and dispossessed by more vigorous rivals. Powerful words uttered here on this spot nearly 50 years ago. Now, today's ceremony is in education, the Faculty of Education, and I thank Barnaby Lennon, the Dean of the Faculty of Education, for all his dedicated work for the university and for you as graduates. But education is special to me because this was my field of endeavour before I became the Vice-Chancellor here. I started my career as a school teacher, a mathematics teacher, in Zimbabwe for some time. And then I went into mathematics education research at the NFER, National Foundation for Educational Research. Eventually did my PhD at UCL in education. And I became an expert in private education, independent education. But this didn't satisfy me because 20 years ago, when my career was blossoming and I was this expert in private education, 20 years ago, everyone knew private education was about the privilege, about the elite, and my life, for whatever reason, I wanted that to be there to serve the poor. And so I felt dissatisfied. And then one day, these different parts of my life came together. I was doing consultancy work for the International Finance Corporation in Hyderabad, south central India. I was doing consultancy work in high-end colleges, private colleges there. But on a day off from that work, I followed a hunch I had and took an auto rickshaw down to where I knew the slums of the old city were and went walking into those slums. And I found, down one alleyway, I found a school. Not a normal school, not a government school, a private school. In those days, charging just barely £1 a month. And then another school, and then another school. And I realized, and I found a federation of 500 of these low-cost private schools for the poor. And you can see how the two parts of my life came together. That here I was working in private education and realizing that they could serve the poor. But my question, and your question, I'm sure if you'd been there, would have been, why are parents using the private schools when the government schools are free? And you get free lunch, possibly free books. And time after time, the parents said to me, because in the government schools, our children are abandoned. So I went to see one of the government schools for myself, and I went with the deputy education officer, and the building was beautiful. The buildings in the slums were probably as you imagine. They were not beautiful, but in the beautiful, or rather nice government school building, I'll never forget the sight I saw in the first classroom I visited, 130 children seated on the floor amongst the mosquitoes, young, bushy-eyed, keen young children, eager to meet the stranger, eager to learn, but abandoned by the teachers. And abandoned, the deputy education officer told me with admirable honesty, abandoned every single day. And so you could see instantly why the parents were opting for the low-cost schools, which, however inadequate the buildings were, and you had to pay what to us seems a small amount. There was lively teaching going on in all those schools. So I went back to the International Finance Corporation in Washington, D.C., really fired up by what I'd seen. I said, well, there's something remarkable going on. There's this remarkable self-help amongst the poor in at least the slums of Hyderabad. And I was told, calm down, Thule. All you've seen are a few businessmen ripping off the poor. And I thought, this is not what I've seen at all. There's something special going on here. So I managed to get a large grant, which really set the trajectory for my career. And I studied this phenomenon of low-cost private schools across the world, in the slums of Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, other parts of India, even in rural China. And then finally, all the time, finding these schools were there serving a majority of the poor, outperforming the government schools at a cost affordable to parents on the poverty line. And finally, I decided to look in the most difficult places on this planet and went searching in war-torn countries in Africa, went to Sierra Leone, Liberia, South Sudan, Somalia, found the same phenomenon, catalogued the same phenomenon, created some federations. The one I'm most proud of is the federation in Nigeria called AFED, a wonderful Nigerian name, Association of Formidable Education Development. And we have 5,000 schools with nearly 1 million kids. So I hope you don't mind indulging me in that summary of my work, because you're in education, and who knows, some of you may find some of what I said there inspiring or interesting. I wrote a book about this whole phenomenon called The Beautiful Tree, and one of the reviewers said that I was suffering from a severe overdose of wanderlust. Another reviewer called me the Indiana Jones of education policy. But it's wonderful to share these with you and see some of your smiles of recognition, which is wonderful. I want to close with a couple of quotes from Winston Churchill. Why Winston Churchill? Well, this week in history was quite an important week for Winston Churchill back in 1945. In 1945, yesterday in fact, the 26th of July, Winston Churchill lost the election after the war. He'd helped get the country through the Second World War, but then the British people decided they wanted something different, and he lost the election. And I think there are a few quotes from Winston Churchill that we can listen to and perhaps also think about how they are relevant to our lives. On winning the war, I liked the fact of his modesty. He said, "I've never accepted what many people have kindly said, namely that I inspired the nation. No, it was the nation," he said, "and those dwelling all around the globe that had the lion's heart. I had the luck to be called upon to give the roar." Modesty in success is a good virtue, I think, not always blowing your own trumpet. But also overcoming failure, recognizing, I'm sure all of you have had ups and downs in your lives, and you will carry on having ups and downs in your life. But he said a wonderful quote about success. He said something wonderful about success, and I quote, "Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm." I really like that quote. And finally, from Winston Churchill, this is a momentous day for us and for you, that you are at this present time moving on to something that could be very special. And Winston Churchill said about this sort of occasion in general, "To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour." We like to think that we have helped you get prepared and get qualified so that when that moment comes to you, whatever form it takes, you are able to live up to your finest hour. Buckingham's motto, the University of Buckingham's motto is "Alias volans proprius," flying on our own wings. I think we've helped you get your wings now so that you can continue to fly and fly high. But not just wings, I hope we have also given you roots. Do see yourself as part of a growing international family of alumni of the University of Buckingham. You are now part of that growing international community. I wish you well for the next stages of your lives. Do keep in touch. Please. Thank you.
Chancellor, I call upon Professor Barnaby Lennon, Dean of the Faculty of Education, to present candidates for awards of the University of Buckingham in education.
Good morning, everybody. I was a teacher for 40 years, I still am, and I'm in touch with friends of mine from school and university. And although some of them have made more money than me, I am so pleased that after I left university, I decided to be a teacher. And I hope that you have that feeling too. The joy of being able to stay close to a subject that I love, the discovery that I could continue through many years to develop my understanding of that subject, while taking on new responsibilities as the years ticked by. I never, ever found teaching boring. I often found it riveting, and not many people say that of their jobs. the fun of working alongside like-minded colleagues, the everyday drama of school life, the terrible things some pupils do, the wonderful things some pupils do, the fact that few jobs have the capacity to make much difference to the lives of people. The other day I was invited for coffee with an army general who claimed that I had taught him in 1980. He meant little to me, I'm afraid, except for the fact that the coffee was a reminder to all us teachers that in some small way that had some significance to him, I had said or done something that he still remembered and which had had a helpful impact on his life. And in 30 years' time, most of your pupils will remember you. Many will be grateful, especially for pressing on during those dimly remembered days of that virus. Many will remember a good deal of what you taught. Some will recall individual lessons and even specific things that you said in individual lessons. No one told me that that would happen when I was doing teacher training. You are the key workers. We teachers, we may not always be wealthy, but we are so rich and so clever for having chosen a profession which leads to a life which is brimming with interest and full of moral purpose. And so, Chancellor, I present to you the graduates in education for the degree of Master of Education at the National College of Education, Sharon Leslie Annetts. Alison Bellingham. Zoe Marie Claxton. Deborah Ann Davies. Cara Louise Dowson with distinction. Matthew Fuller with distinction. Kendra Gerish with distinction. April Caroline Guinness. Richard Hall. Sarah Naomi Hanley. Victoria Louise Jarvis with distinction. Yestin Jones with distinction. Rachel Kay with distinction. Erin Kennedy with distinction. Yvonne Maria Kiriakou with distinction. Anita Joan Lambert. Katie Louise Lawrence. Jane Alexandra Leggett with distinction. Immaculata Matthews with distinction. Fiona McLean. Donna Alice Moran with distinction. Harriet Phelps Knights. Harup Sandhu. My colleague, Tracy Jane Smith, with distinction. Woo! Joanna Staples, with distinction. Susan Ann Steggles, with distinction. Susanna Margaret Sutton. Olivia Treverton Jones, with distinction. Dawn Wakefield, with distinction. Jennifer Walker. Jacqueline Welton. Mark White. Louisa Mary Wilkinson, with distinction. Rebecca Elizabeth Worth. Karen Wright, with distinction. For the degree of Master of Arts in Education, Hayley Blackman. Gloria Dalafu. Brendalyn Gabidon. Ashish Gupta. Rabail Junaid. Trevor King. Razwan Sarwar. Kevin Towell. For the degree of Master of Arts in Education Evidence-Based Practice, Kate Newman. For the degree of Master of Arts in Education, Inclusive Educational Leadership, Heidi Carr-Brown. Rebecca Franklin. Judith Hayes. Sumaya Ibrahim, with distinction. Susan Nemhard. Debbie Ann Petts with distinction. Emma Postlethwaite. Emma Salomon. Ashley Tagg with distinction. For the degree of Master of Arts in Residential Education, Wayne Callan. Tanya Wallace. Chancellor, that concludes the presentation.
Chancellor, Mr. Nick Hurd, Chief Learning Officer, Oceanova, will now address the graduates.
So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all. I'm so proud to be sharing your graduation day. We promised to get you through, and it's been an absolute honour to share in your peak moments. What you've achieved is nothing short of remarkable. You've managed to provide for the communities you serve through a global pandemic while studying during the most challenging and turbulent years in education ever. I've been asked to deliver an inspirational speech, and in the absence of someone who's climbed Everest without oxygen, free soloed up El Capitan, or even won a gold medal, you've got me, just a teacher. Battle-scarred from teaching PE, running in and out of some of the most challenging gang-ridden estates in South London, desperate to make a difference in the system, and looking at you all, by vicarious attribution, I think I may just have done it. You might find some of what I will share with you inspiring. You will most definitely find some of it boring, and you will definitely forget most of it within a week. I wanted to start with what I perceive to be the 6 most valuable rules of life. Some fueled by Professor Steve Peters and the Chimp Paradox, some fueled by Sam Conniff and Be More Pirate, and others simply my own. Rule number 1, life isn't fair. Life is absolutely not fair. Don't overthink it. Life is what it is. Accept and embrace it. Thrive in it. Make the most of every moment and enjoy it. Rule number 2, the goalpost move. Dreaming is the ultimate act of self-indulgence and delusion. Goalpost move, so don't waste your time on the maybe. Rather be passionate in your dedication and pursuit of short-term goals. Be micro-ambitious. Put your head down and work with pride on whatever it is in front of you. You never know where you may end up. Just be aware that the next worthy pursuit will probably appear in your periphery, which is why you should be careful of solely long-term dreams and pursuits. If you focus too far in front, to quote Tim Minchin, you simply won't see the shiny thing out the corner of your eye, the glittering prize within your grasp. Don't inhabit the wasteland of missed opportunity. Rule number 3, there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees in life, only death, and that's an altogether different occasion. The only guarantee I can afford is to lead with empathy first, your heart second, and finally your head. Listen to others more than you speak. Be curious about others, be generous of spirit, and notice what others don't. I can guarantee, and the irony isn't lost, that if you do this, the impact on those around you will be enduring and lasting. Some would even dare to call this true leadership. Rule number 4, be a teacher. Please, please, please continue to be a teacher. Teachers are the most admirable and important people in the world. Share your ideas, share your passion. Don't take for granted the privilege of your education. Rejoice in what you have learned and share it. Be evangelical in your approach and rejoice in the gift of learning for those that you serve. Rule number 5, notice and respect people with less power than you. I have in the past made important decisions about the people I work with, who I recruit and who I appoint, and 2 of which are joining us as graduates today. I base that solely on how they behave and how they treat the people around them. I don't care if you're the highest paid person in the room. I will judge you on how you treat the least powerful. Notice everybody, especially those that are present and quiet. Introversion is a superpower. And when I finish trembling over this speech, I may actually reflect that I've enjoyed sharing it with you. Rule number 6, and the most important rule for me, is be more pirate. Pirates are heroes. They challenged the status quo and innovated and challenged beyond belief. There's much to be learned from the pirates about inclusion, and I invite you to challenge your own bias and explore the world of pirating as a secret weapon in changing the way that you think. Dare to think differently. Challenge the permeating culture we see in education and do it for those that you serve. In the words of Banksy, the greatest crimes in this world are committed by those who simply follow the rules. Go and break some, and do it with passion, heart and conviction, and remember why that you're doing it. And to close, with words adapted from Peter Dale Wimbro's poem, The Man in the Glass, I'd like to share this with you. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you sovereign for a day, go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that person has to say. It isn't your father, your mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The person whose verdict counts most in your life is the person staring back from the glass. They're the person to please, never mind the rest. They're with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult and dangerous test if the person in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of tears and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the person in the glass. Thank you for indulging me. Go on to be modern day pirates. Drive change our educational world needs. Create future greatness and grow exponentially. Because if anyone can, it's you. Thank you.
The Chancellor will now conclude this ceremony.
Well, first, may I thank Nick Hurd for those splendid rules. I think it's maybe a bit late for me to become a pirate, but you can all become pirates, if not of the Caribbean, at least of the Great Ouse River. As the Registrar has said, this ceremony is now drawing to its close. May I again congratulate all you, our new graduates, and wish you all good fortune in the next stage of your careers. As you leave the university, you'll take with you, wherever you go and throughout your life, the knowledge you have acquired at Buckingham of educational theory and practice, equipped as you are with the skills and knowledge to rescue young minds from the pain and tyranny of ignorance. When I was a teacher, I could sometimes sympathize with my pupils when I sent them particularly tough questions from the Tripos. I was a university teacher. But I always said to them, you'll be grateful that you learnt this one day. May I also say it was a pleasure to listen to Nick Hurd talk about the heroes he might have brought along, and the Vice-Chancellor to talk about yesterday in 1947, when Churchill memorably said he was called upon to give the roar of the lion. Let's just hear a word and a roar for the lionesses. This ceremony is now concluded. Thank you very much.
Please be upstanding.